Are we allowed to be angry at all? Well, we did learn at the very beginning of this letter, our sages say in the Talmud, that someone who gets angry is likened to an idolater. So how could there be a question about this? We seem to have answered it, but not so simple, as everything in Jewish teachings, It's not so simple. Yes, someone who gets angry is likened to an idolater. Why? Because an idolater wants to have control and not allow God to have the control. Wants to have things the way they want it, as opposed to the way God wants it. Someone who truly believes, as our sages say, Hakol bidei shamayim, everything is in the hands of heaven. That means all mundane affairs are in the hands of heaven, except bidei shamayim, chutz miyir shamayim, except for the fear of heaven, meaning heavenly matters are in our hands. Meaning, heavenly matters, meaning the way we behave. That's heavenly. That's in our hands. Who I meet on the street, what happened to my car overnight, by the way, just a few weeks ago, maybe a month now or so, my car was also stolen. I didn't get angry because I recognize it's bidei shamayim. It's in the hands of heaven. What's there to get angry about? What's there to get frustrated? What's there to get no point? It was meant to be. However, heavenly matters. Now, heavenly matters means, as the phrase is used, the fear of heaven. The fear of heaven, meaning the choices that we make. That's a bit different. As we find, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses himself, got angry at the Jewish people. He didn't get angry because, well, you made a choice and the consequence of that choice had an ill effect upon me, spiritually, materially, whatever. No. He got angry at their choices that they made an immoral choice. And for that, that's called a heavenly matter. He got angry. But, and here's the important point, is most often we get angry at someone not because of their immoral choices that they make, but because the immoral choices, how it affects us, what it does to us, how it diminishes me materially, diminishes me spiritually, diminishes me because I feel less than. For whatever. And therefore we get upset. If we get upset, that means we don't recognize that what happened was meant to be. But if you got upset because of the moral choice that that person made, now, it's easier when it's done to somebody else. You could get angry for that. But when it's done to you, that's already a huge challenge. To be truly upset at the other for the lack of fear of heaven, which means the lack of the presence of God in their choice, and they made an ill choice. So why would God bring this to us? That we should see someone do something wrong and rebuke them? Well, first of all, to help them. And secondly, that's part of our responsibilities. Our responsibilities not just towards ourselves, but towards others. Now, here's the important thing. That's only if it's going to help. You should not rebuke another person for their lack of morality to them, in front of them, to them, if they're not going to listen. If you're not sure they're going to listen, okay, so that's another issue. But let's go you saying such and such to them, getting upset at them, getting angry at them, that was immoral. That was terrible what you just said to that person. How could you act that way? If saying those words with force, with anger, is not going to impact them, then probably you shouldn't say it. I'm giving just general principle. Now, our situation that the Alter Rebbe is making reference to, is, the term is an uncircumcised heathen, meaning someone who's a non-believer and is interrupting you in the midst of your prayers. The reason they're interrupting you is not to, I got lost. Could you help me find my, how to get to the supermarket? No. And I remember, this is just the example that the Baal Shem Tov is giving in his teachings in Tzavos HaRivosh, that you're in the middle of your prayers and you're being interrupted by this heathen who's trying to confuse you while you're praying, not trying to gain anything for themselves or to help you in any way. They don't like the fact you're praying, right? Again, this is the example, right? Could it be that someone is, not acting that way? Maybe, it's earnestly wants to understand, why are you praying to God? Why are you a believer? That's a different story. But that's not the story we're talking about. Okay? That's not the example the Baal Shem Tov is making reference to. So then the question arises, what is this that God has done to me, right? Or to this person who's being interrupted by this idolater who is disruptive, period. So the Alter Rebbe says, this is only done in order that you should recognize that you need to work harder on your prayers, prevail, strengthen yourself from within in order that you can come to a deeper place in your prayers with a greater intense concentration to such a degree where you don't hear this idolater at all, if you can get there at least. I mean, that's the direction to go. But such a level, how do you reach that? So the Alter Rebbe says, this is what you say to yourself. Say to yourself to arouse within you the depth of your soul so you could really focus in on your prayers and make as if this person doesn't exist. Why? Because you get angry at them that what are you trying to do? You're trying to confuse me in my prayers? You're trying to be disruptive? What a chutzpah. What nerve you had. The person doesn't care. I'm not going to listen to you. Again, this is the example. Could there be an instance where the person will listen to you? So then it's different. Then you have to rebuke them. But we're talking about in a case not. So one should consider and meditate, the Alter Rebbe says, on the concept of what we've been speaking about till this point, till today's class, about the Shechina, the divine presence of God, which is the, as we call in Kabbalistic literature, Malchus, royalty, sovereignty of God, the power of God as creator, as the king rules with his word, God creates with his word, Malchus, and that's the Shechina, divine presence. We had other names for it, if you remember earlier, to describe different elements of the divine presence of God. Now, which is the again, the creative power of God, this Shechina has descended in a wondrous fashion to now find itself as a animating force vested in Kelipah, a shell that's covering over on the presence of God. This is in general the state of the world today. The presence of God is not revealed. It is in a state of exile, in what we call Kelipah, the shell, in order to animate everything in a manner of Kelipah. That's in general, that it vests itself and is in a state of exile. Now, this heathen, this non-believer, this idolater, who is being disruptive, trying to confuse me, just because kind of like making fun of me, uttering these words to disturb from my prayers. Well, just like my prayers are coming from a good place, from a holy place in order to connect to God. As we learned, God makes one thing opposite the other. Light, darkness, good, evil. And here, we're trying to have the presence of God. This is the opposite of the presence. This is the spark of God in exile, in the speech of this heathen. That the supernal speech, the Shechina, is vesting itself in his speech. Again, in Kelipah, in an exiled manner, giving him the power. And this is the idea of the evil man ruling over sacred man, holy man. Right? As we, again, darkness trying to overpower light. And ultimately, that's, in this moment, that's what the person is trying to do. Ultimately, it's not going to work. But in the moment, there is this prevailing power. But when you meditate upon this and you recognize this is what God is doing, so now that will bring me to devote myself with greater intensity of concentration, greater vigor in my prayers. Greater intensity in my prayers. Because I'm recognizing that the Shechina of God is in exile over here, giving power to this evildoer, right? Acting evil in the moment, perhaps an anti-Semite, whatever. Yeah, probably. But again, it's not about name calling here. It's not about putting a label on somebody. It's about understanding that you're in a position. You're not in a position here that you're going to impact somebody by having conversation with them or even getting angry at the way they're acting, because they don't believe. You're not going to be able to affect them. Again, if you are able, that's a different story. Like Moshe Rabbeinu was able to affect the Jewish people, so he got angry at them in order to put them on the right path. But that's not the case over here. So you're going to meditate upon this idea that we've learned for many, many classes to understand that the Shechina, divine presence of God, is animating and giving the power of speech from God's speech in a way that it is Kelipah. God is not present in him in a revealed way, but it is the power of God. And he's doing it for a reason, that I should recognize this fact, this reality, and be able to now in turn look inside of me, find a greater strength from within me to be able to pray in a devout way to such a degree where this person is irrelevant. This person is not disturbing me because I am totally focused. By the way, for those who pray with a minyan, know that you have in shul often, people are talkers and you get upset and angry at them. You might think that it is because, you might think that you're getting upset and angry at them, out of your righteousness and their immoral way of acting. It's usually not. It's usually a control thing. Usually it's not about that person's immorality. It's about you. Usually. I don't say all the time, but if we were honest, what we need to do is just focus more strongly. Now, if you're the rabbi like me in prayers, that I have a responsibility to bring, to create an appropriate service where people are focused and davening and not, horsing around, for lack of a better term. Right? So I have that responsibility. So I have that responsibility. But other people in the congregation, sometimes they feel, they got to take this responsibility upon them, and they lose their cool, get upset. And they feel very self-righteous because, after all, they're quiet in their prayers. They're concentrating, and you're disturbing my concentration. Again, it's a very, so we got to be careful with that. We have to be careful with it. So the Alter Rebbe now continues. I hope that was clear. I saw some texting going on over here. Oops, a daisy. All right, let me see if there's anything that I should know. That you're writing. No, okay. Sorry. So the Alter Rebbe continues. The compiler of this sefer, this book, Tzvos HaRivosh, which is a compilation of teachings from the Baal Shem Tov, where the Baal Shem Tov wrote this example for us to learn from. So the Alter Rebbe explains that the compiler wrote in Hebrew something that the Baal Shem Tov said in Yiddish, and as a result, did not translate a word properly. And the word that did not translate properly is, he says, Visharsa Hashchina, that the divine presence, Sharsa, which means dwelled in a revealed manner in this heathen non-believer. So that was a mistake in the translation. It should have been Nislabsha, was enclosed the divine presence of God within the heathen, in which would mean in a hidden way rather than a revealed way. However, so the translation is incorrect, but the context or the meaning stays the same. It's not that it was the presence of God is revealed in this heathen. Of course not. He's acting as an unbeliever. Of course, God's not revealed through this person. God is concealed, hidden, in exile. There, but in exile. And the fact that we call it Shechina, divine presence of God, that is in exile, why would you call that? Call it, spark, something, but not. That's correct. Because we even find by angels, sometimes they're called in the name of God, Elohim. So the Shechina, can be in a place that is hidden, as in exile. And that's it. So powerful teaching. I know some people wrote something. Okay. All right, getting some good feedback over here. see. Just give me a brief moment. See if I'm any other. I can't get to it over here properly. And don't seem to have it here properly either.
So the alternate now continues.
Oops. All right. Okay, maybe very powerful. Okay. So Amir is saying something. Now, what if we turn this hatred into love? Well, I think the point over here was not to have hatred. We're not talking about hatred. Because hatred leads to anger, of course, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about recognizing the facts of what's going on over here. Now, can you have love and then turn over this individual? We're talking about I'm in the middle of my prayers. So I'm not reaching out to that person. I've got to focus on my prayers. That's the duty at hand. And now, so how am I thinking about this? Am I getting angry inside of me because of the lack of moral, proper choice? It's a mistake to think that love conquers all. That's a Western idea, not a Jewish idea. We have two hands. Right hand is chesed, motivated by love. Kindness, it's motivated by love. But we have a left hand that is judgment, severity, that's motivated by fear. Love and fear. Fear means fear of separation, fear of being disconnected from our source. So we need to have both. Can't only have love. Predominantly love, yes, and kindness, absolutely. But it doesn't always work. But here, it's not about love. It's about, do I have a responsibility to set this person on the right path? And when this person is not ready and is not a vessel yet, now, can you, through love, maybe bring them to a higher level to make them a vessel? Yes, that is true also. That is true. That's a possibility. But that's not the instance over here. The instance is about me in the middle of my prayers. So how am I dealing with it within inside of me? So it's not a moment for love, because I'm praying. Maybe love of God, but not the love to this person. The question is an understanding of what's happening over here, that this person is being disruptive, trying to bring me away from my connection to God in my prayers, and how am I going to handle this? So when I understand that this is something that God is giving the person vitality in Kelipah, and the reason for it is in order to give me an awareness of that, so I could become stronger from within and not allow that to be disruption for me. That's a powerful thing. Love is about how I'm responding to that person. Right now, it's about how I am dealing with the disruption that's coming from this person in the midst of my prayers. Am I feeling self-righteous? Am I feeling, how am I going to handle this? Well, this is what we're talking about. But very good point, Amir. There is definitely times that maybe love, that could conquer in certain instances. I would agree with you, but that's not the instance over here, and it's not about dealing with the person in that moment. It's about dealing with your prayers in that moment. All right, that's it, folks. Sharing is caring. Please share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the time. You have a wonderful day.